you can see it easily what I'm talking about. You know, you're in the kitchen, and you've got one recipe that says, you know, a half, and then you've got to add something from something else that says 2/6, and you don't know how much to have. A half plus 2/6, what is that? So you could measure a half, and then you could measure 2/6. But if you want to add them together and make it easier, you can't add a half and 2/6. They're not the same kind of thing. It's like you can't add apples and oranges. You have to call them both fruits. So you have to turn the halves into 6 before you can add them. You can say that's 3/6 and 2/6. Now I have 5/6, and then you can figure out what to do. But before you can do that, you have to know that 1/2 equals 3/6. Okay? So before you can do the step you really need to do, you have to learn a preliminary skill, which by itself is absolutely useless. Just turning 1/2 into 3/6 by itself has no value. It's only value in using it to add unlike fractions. But you're not doing that yet. And you're spending, you know, week after week and page after page in your maths book, as you say, finding equivalent fractions. And if the kids want to know, what are we doing this for? It's very hard for the teacher to explain it without going to the next step that the kids don't understand yet. Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
Or do you remember when you learned the names of what would you call that? Grammatical terms. What's a noun, what's a verb, what's an adverb, what's an adjective, what's a participle, what's a gerund, what's an adverb phrase, what's an independent clause, what's a dependent clause, what's an adverbial subordinate clause. Do you remember doing that stuff? No. You don't remember doing it even? Okay. Anyway, I'm sure you did it. And I'm sure we all wondered, why are we doing this? You know, I never hear my mother, father, or auntie, or uncle, or anybody say, wow, that was a great participial phrase you just used. Hey, that was a dangling modifier. I just, you know, why do we spend 10 years learning this? Well, the reason you learn that is just like why, if you're doing a sports game, why you learn what the different terms are. That's a foul, this is a pass, this is... Because otherwise you can't talk about things. You know, you're going to say to somebody, look, okay, the word in your sentence that shows who or what is doing something is talking about more than someone who's doing something, but the words in your sentence that show what they're doing is only talking about somebody doing something, and they don't go together very well, so your sentence doesn't make sense. And if you can just say your subject and your predicate don't match a number, then okay, we can understand what we're talking about, and we can learn the rules of English, and we can have proper English. And after a while, you forget those things. After a while, they're not. You don't need to know those terms anymore, because hopefully your English has become, you can now sense, you can now hear when your subject and predicate don't match a number. No? If I say, the boy sats, oh wait, that's not right. But how do you learn that it's not right? You have to learn those terms. You have to go through that process. So going through the process doesn't make any sense to the kids. Why do I have to do this for? Why can't I just jump to the Raganuga English platform? You know, why do I have to do the Vaidhi English? But the teacher knows that in order to have a spontaneous understanding of good grammar, you have to understand the rules. And in order to understand the rules, you've got to have a common vocabulary. Otherwise, it's too cumbersome. So therefore, you go through those steps, even though at a certain point, you don't even think about the rules anymore. What to speak of the vocabulary that you needed to understand the rules. That's all gone. So as Krishna's taking us closer and closer to him, he's taking us through lessons which, to us, seen in isolation, don't make any sense. Why am I learning this stupid thing? What's the point of it anyway? And if we ask him to explain it, he can't explain it in a way that makes sense to us. We're not at a level to understand it. We're not at his level. As they have that expression, it's above our pay scale. We don't have the vision. Or also in running a school, it's very interesting to go from a parent of a child in a school to a teacher of a class to the head of a school. When you're the parent, you see just what happens with my kid. Why did you have to change my kid's desk? And I've had calls from irate parents. Why did you give my kid another desk? That was her desk. I'm thinking, it wasn't her desk. And when you're the teacher, you just see your class. But when you're the principal, you see the whole school. And the teachers can't see the whole school. They just can't. There's this big jump that happens when you go from being a teacher in your class to being a principal. Your vision just widens. And the parent can't even see the whole class. They can only see what's good for their child. But maybe what they think is good for their child is not good for the class, and maybe if it's not good for the class, it's not going to be good for their child either. And maybe what seems to be good for the class is not good for the whole school. I once visited a school here in London where they taught by themes. So instead of just teaching English and maths and science, they would teach about Egypt or China or aardvarks or something. And I said, do the teachers ever get together and discuss what they're teaching so it's not that every year the kids learn about China? And they said, no. I said, well, that means that there must be big gaps in the learning. They must do some things over and over again, and some things there are gaps. They said, well, yeah, that's true. So they didn't have anybody looking at the big picture. It's just, well, I feel like teaching about flowers. And that's what we're going to teach. So we don't see the big picture. We just see our own little life. We don't understand the whole. And we can't. How can we possibly? How can we possibly understand it?